Hello. I sure hope people can hear me because I did not plan well. And okay, I'm getting lots of pop-ups. Hang on. I'm not good with computers, so um, this is what it is. Um, all right, well, let me. I'm a little paranoid that nobody can hear me because I don't know if I have a microphone. So I have nobody on the. Oh, my headphones aren't plugged in. So I don't know if that helps or hurts the process here. Try not to talk too loud because my family's sleeping. Uh, so here we go. Fingers crossed. My husband edits videos for a living, so he's probably gonna look at this video and be like, "Oh, geez." But I had a very specific reason for going live tonight. I hope it works out. I hope I haven't totally messed this up. Um, my name is Bridget. Most of the people who will watch this probably already know me. So hello everybody. Um, I had been thinking about doing a video for today, March 31st, 2022, for quite some time, but I just didn't get it planned, didn't get it filmed ahead of time. Life kind of got on the way, but I couldn't let today pass without marking it somehow. So you get this messy, kind of thrown together thing that I hope works out, and I hope people can hear me, and I hope it isn't totally rambling, because even though I took notes about what I wanted to say, anybody who knows me would tell you that I'm long-winded. Um, but my name's Bridget, and today is the 10-year anniversary of my first institutionalization in a psych ward. Sorry, I didn't think I didn't think I'd get emotional this early, but that is basically um, my point. Why I wanted to do this video is 10 years ago, I officially lost it and was hospitalized. And I just wanted to talk about what the last 10 years has been like, what I've learned, um, and how I got there, and where I would like to see not just myself go in the future, but I want to talk about some of the things that I plan to in the future do um, more videos with hopefully more production value, talking more specifically about topics like what mental health recovery is like, what to expect. If you're a family member, how to help a family who's going through um, a mental health crisis, your participation in your own recovery. And specifically for me, I want to talk about burnout and what it was like going from being a provider of mental health services to being a patient of mental health services, and what some of the things that I learned along the way, that I think are applicable to probably where a lot of people are at today after a couple of years of a pandemic. I think burnout has been an issue in our society for a long time. I think a lot of people have experienced a lot of unexpected changes in their life, and have had to deal with long-term stress and uncertainty and, just feeling like things aren't going to change and aren't going to get better. And I think that's something that we can all relate to. And that's stuff I'd like to talk about in the future. But for today, I kind of want to just hopefully not take forever just to go over who I am and how I lost my mind. so, um, so basically, I started out, I was working as an individual skills developer for a few years. I did family skills development, I did individual skills development, and I did group skills development. I worked primarily with abused and neglected children, um, some adults, and some teens. Um, and I should probably put a trigger warning at this point that I'm not entirely sure what topics I'll bring up because I'm a little scatterbrained, but I will be talking about mental illness, I will be talking about suicide, and I will be talking about um, some topics that are maybe difficult to stomach. So manage your own health, and if at any point you need to turn off, please do so. Um, but I worked in the field of mental health and human services for a few years, I think probably about 5 or 6. And I have had a history of mental illness in the past with depression and um, anxiety as a child and as a teenager. And that was part of what drove me to the field in the first place, is I wanted to be a helper. I wanted to help people who were like me or who had experienced things like me. And that was always something I saw myself doing. I didn't really have any other aspirations for my life. I just knew I was going to be in the field in some kind of capacity as a helper. And I think you get into the field and you think you're going to be able to make a lot of changes. And it doesn't take long to realize that there's so many systemic issues that it's such a multifaceted um, condition of just how everything is, that your job as an individual, the impact that you hope that you'll make when you go into the field, ends up being very different than what you initially expect it to be while you're going to school and you're training and stuff like that. Um, and that becomes kind of just part of the job where you just get into work mode and you just do your job. And for the most part, I really enjoyed that job. I still miss being in the field in a lot of ways. The camaraderie with other people, providing services, and working with people who are in crisis and struggling. I miss doing that. And I hope in some capacity in the future I can find a way to be helpful again. Um, I sure hope I'm being clear. I'm a lot more emotional than I thought I would be. Um, but um, I got to a point where uh, the pressures of the job and a lot of personal um, things going on in my life got to the point where things got overwhelming. And I'll probably talk a little bit more in the future in a more edited video because I want to respect other people's privacy. But I I want to think out a bit more about how I describe exactly where things went wrong. But I um on March 31st, 2012, I made my first um, suicide attempt, and luckily I was not successful. Um, I had reached a breaking point where I was so out of my mind I wasn't really sure what I was doing, and I called my husband, um, and he made the difficult but the right choice to call me an ambulance. And probably about this time, about 10:43, probably about this time I was in the ER under evaluation, just waiting to find out what was happening, because I had crossed that line from being a provider to being a patient, and I didn't know what that would mean. And I think it's an unspoken thing in the human services field that, again, I will probably talk more at length in the future, but there is a line between being a provider and being a patient. And I had known for a long time that I was depressed and burnt out, but I had felt like I couldn't stop doing the job because there was nobody else that could do the job. And I know that's an inaccurate thing to think, but it just felt like it was my job to do, and it was just the way things were, and I had to keep going. And the more things fell apart for me at work, the more I tried to make things work in my personal life, and got way too involved in way too many situations there, trying to keep everything running smoothly. And I got more and more apathetic. And I thought that the apathy meant that I was handling things better because I wasn't being hit by them as hard. But I just, turns out, was not processing a lot of emotions. They were just piling up. And yeah, I lost it. And I couldn't hold it together anymore. And um, I'm not really sure exactly what else to say. I just know that, like, I was waiting in the hospital, feeling the shame of, you know, people knowing that I was ill, that I've been hiding those things for a long time. And it was kind of a mix of relief that I didn't have to hide it anymore, but a lot of shame as well, because it felt like it was something that I had to do myself, and that I was a burden, and that I was putting, I had held it together, and I had the appearance of being normal, and I couldn't hide it anymore. And so it was kind of a mix of a lot of really deep shame and a lot of relief that people knew I was not doing well. And I think I surprised a lot of people. I haven't really talked to people specifically about too much about their individual thoughts about. I think some people suspected, like, my husband and my sister and other family members suspected that I was starting to not do very well, and I kind of I did not want to take help because I felt like that would be admitting defeat. And I got to the point where I was so burnt out and um, so crippled by just everything going on and the weight of everything that I could no longer wait to get help. It's kind of one of those things where I think I've read somewhere that like if you don't take care of your body will get to a point where you'll be forced to. And that was very much the case for me, where I did not take care of myself. I felt like engaging in self-care and saying I needed a break and disengaging from situations that didn't really have anything to do with me, and that it was really not my business, and taking on more and more work because there's no one else to do it, or felt like there's no one else to do it. I I put myself in a position where I could no longer do the job and didn't want to live anymore. And so they observed me in the hospital. I got visited from family. I had a lot of family support. I think there was probably like 17 people there. I don't even know. But I got transferred to a different hospital in a larger city and spent probably about 14 days there. I had my birthday there. It was very nice. The staff was very nice. They got me a birthday cake. Um, but it was a very strange experience going from being somebody that would be on a treatment team to being treated, um, and being on the other end of treatment is a very strange experience because I think there are a lot of things that are normalized in the field, a lot of mindsets that are normalized in the field that are coming from a very generally kind place and a helpful place. Um, but when you're on the receiving end of it, it feels different. And a lot of that difference is you feel like you have no control over your life and what's happening to you. And you feel like people don't trust your ability to really um, conceptualize what's happening to you. And um, you know, again, I want to do more kind of more thought out videos in the future. I've had 10 years to really think about how I got where I got and how where I'm at now. And but the biggest thing I'd say this video is already 18 minutes long, is I want to talk about um, what mental health recovery means, what it meant for me, what it looks like. And I think the first thing that I'll say is that I don't think there's such a thing as mental health recovery. I think recovery means different things to different people. And I think for a lot of people, when they're starting to heal, recovery looks like getting back to where they were before or being the same as everybody else. And in reality, recovery is much more learning to look at yourself without shame, to accept where you are at in this moment and focus on what you can do to take care of yourself and to not compare yourself to where you were in the past and where you want to be in the future. Just kind of stay focused on the now. Some people go through mental breakdowns or periods of depression and they come out the other side and they can get back to where they were before and they feel fine. And for me, I think one of the hardest things was that that was not the case for me. I went through multiple ups and downs, multiple institutionalizations, and I had to get to a point where I realized that I was going to be, that this was going to be a part of my life, and that I was going to have to rethink how I thought about myself to be able to really live with chronic mental illness on top of chronic physical health issues, but to be able to really live with myself and the desire to keep going. When a lot of days you wake up and you don't feel like that's something you can keep going. Um, if I had to be honest, I've probably considered suicide for about 20 years now, and I have come to view it in a similar way that I view my autoimmune diseases, is that the suicidal ideation is like a symptom for me. And it helps me to think about it that way, because when I start feeling a lot of those feelings like I'm worthless and that I can't go on, in that every time I wake up it's a struggle, that's a sign that I need to rest. And same as I would with a flare up of an autoimmune issue, that I'm having symptoms and that those thoughts aren't, I mean, they're real, they're coming from my brain. It's a real illness, but they're not a reflection of who I am as a person or my self worth. They are the illness. And learning to change my mindset about a lot of things has helped. Learning to, not that I'll ever be perfect and not ever second guess what I'm doing, but I've had a lot of time to think about a lot of things and what healthy means. And I think one of my main issues right now is that I feel like I've stagnated, and it's like, where do I go from here? Um, am I going to keep getting better, or am I going to stay the same? Um, and I want to be somebody that can help other people again, um, and maybe advocate both for um, people with mental illness, but also for providers. I feel like there's more of a disconnect than many people in the field realize between the people that they're helping and the people that are doing the work. And I think a lot of that is lack of resources and lack of time and burnout and a stigma against self-care for providers in the field. Um, and I think that probably is probably true for a lot of fields where you work with vicarious trauma. But, I had a whole bunch of notes here, and I mostly just rambling. So I apologize for that. I'll try and wrap it up here, but I just wanted to say that I'm doing, I would like to say better now. Um, I would like to continue to do better. I would like to, the subjects I want to do more videos on beyond burnout and mental health stigma and providers and self-care and burnout, and stuff like that, is I want to talk about the positive changes that we can make. I want to talk about, transitional care between institutionalizations and outpatient care and stuff like that. So I want to talk about families and how families can be helpful and be supportive of people that are ill. I want to talk to people that are ill about how they can communicate to their family and make a plan for when they are doing worse or in a crisis mode. Because when you are going through, chronic mental illness, it is not you it is you are ill, but you're not always sick, if that makes sense. Like, you're not always experiencing the illness. There's periods where you feel normal and then it hits you. And it's recognizing those ups and downs on the roller coaster. And what do you do, you know, when you're doing well? For me, that's when you do more work, where you make more plans, you communicate with people about what you need and what you want help to look like. You get in touch with a therapist because find a therapist that works for you. And that's a whole nother topic too, is that therapy has helped a lot. Having an objective third party person to really just be able to talk to does make a difference. And the first one's not always the best fit. Sometimes you'll find somebody that will work for a while and you'll need to adapt, and being able to recognize that and what is a good working relationship with a therapist and what's not, and good boundaries with your therapist. That's a whole nother topic, but doing work on recovery when you're doing well, and when you start crashing, that's when you rest and you start your crisis plan. And you can, a lot of people say reach out for help. When you're in crisis mode, you don't reach out for help. You mask. That may not be true for everybody, but that's true for me. And I think that's true for a lot of people, because you may not even recognize that you're crashing, but you certainly don't want other people to know. And so it can be difficult to really reach out. And so making plans when you're doing well, we can talk to your family about what does it look like when I'm going downhill, because I don't always recognize when I'm going downhill, but there's signs. And so having people that are aware and that are able to ask you, how are you doing? Having a support network, because I, not everybody who's like me has a support network. Um, Not everybody who like me has stable homing. Sorry, not everybody who is like me has stable housing and access to medication and access to providers and access to a very strong family and friend support network. And I'm lucky in that sense, because that has made a big difference. Um, and I actually had some commentary from people in one of the institutions I was in, that they're like, oh, well, you don't really belong here. You should have gone to a different crisis center. And I remember thinking that I am not much different than anybody else who was there. I just had more resources available. And I think a lot of times we treat chronically mentally ill people as untreatable, especially depending on their income level and their access to resources. And a lot of that is because there simply isn't enough resources to go around. But I feel like there's a lot of changes that we could do to help each other and to help ourselves. And I think a lot of the changes need to come from the top, with legislation and, our community leaders being willing to fund programs more effectively that can make more of a difference. But I think the mindset needs to kind of come from the ground up, where people are recognizing that this is a problem, not just in the community that I live in, but in general. I think many other places, especially after the last couple of years that we've had, a lot of people have experienced a lot of isolation, a lot of burnout, a lot of unexpected changes in their lives, and that hits you hard. Um, that leaves a mark. Um, I still don't know what I'll do with my future. I had a plan and it didn't work out. And in a lot of ways, I don't know who I am anymore because I identified myself by my job, which in a certain way was probably a mistake because I identified so strongly with my job that I did not take steps to take care of myself when my job was causing me harm. And so those are just some thoughts for tonight. Um, Good Lord, I've already talked 30 minutes. I'm sorry. Um, but I just want this to be kind of a positive thing. I'm really bad at keeping up with projects, but I do want to keep doing something like this where I talk more about individual topics with a little bit more focus than just this. But I just wanted to recognize this day in particular because it is kind of an impactful one for me to think that it's been 10 years since everything changed. And in a lot of ways, they weren't all bad changes. Um, and I learned a lot. And I learned a lot that I wouldn't have learned if I hadn't had the crisis that I had. Um, so there's some positives there. I got to see both sides of the coin. I got to see what it was like to be a provider, and I got to see what it was like to be a patient. And I got to um, see how much support I had around me and see what a difference it makes when you have community support and access to resources. And thinking back to how many clients I worked with that didn't have any of that, and what difference it would have made for them if they had had that. Um, so I'm not really sure what else to say. I'll probably end this and then think of like 5 million things that are like, oh, I should have said this. And hopefully the mic has been on the whole time and people can hear. I have no idea how this works. I'm not a computer person, but I am hoping that if, if anybody's interested in more videos about more specific topics about, you know, staying alive when you often feel like you don't deserve to, um, how to help people in your life that have experience who are living with that, or how to help yourself if you're living with that. And I think some really just systemic changes that we could be making to not only how providers take care of themselves, but also how we take care of people in our society that experience mental illness, and things that I think would ultimately help in the healing process for a lot of people. And healing is, it's a very individual thing. It's like getting to your highest level of functioning, whatever that looks like for you. But for me, definitely the biggest thing is taking the shame out of it, and you know building a support network, um, and destigmatizing what we think of when we think of mental illness, and just different things like that. So I'll probably wrap it up for um, tonight because this is probably um, okay. It says my frame rate's too low. I don't know what that means. So hopefully this has been a terrible video, but I appreciate anybody that watches. And I'll get better at this. I have a spouse that knows a lot more about this than I do, so hopefully I don't embarrass him too much with this terrible quality video. But yeah, I just it's just been so busy, but I just couldn't let tonight pass without saying something. So to anybody else out there who is struggling with burnout or self-care or mental illness or has who loves somebody who's going through that. I wish you the best. I do think things will keep getting better. I've gotten to a point in life where I don't really believe in good or bad people. I believe more in people and their individual choices and how that kind of how we're built on the choices we make. And I think that choosing to take care of yourself and take a step back from things that you to find balance is okay. And being it's difficult to do when you feel like there's nobody else that will step in and do it for you. Take your place in what you're carrying. But sometimes you have to put things down to be able to keep going. Um, if that makes any sense. But I don't know. I don't know what this video would mean to anybody else, but it means something to me to just say that I'm still alive, you know, and I intend to keep 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 that way. And I'm doing a lot of work to make sure that happens. So I appreciate everybody who has given me support over the years, and I just I've had a lot of time to think about what went wrong for me and what I think could be improved in general across the board. And I hope it's taken in a positive way. And I hope I actually make more of these videos instead of it's not just me rambling on occasion. But yeah, just wanted to mark the occasion. Um, Probably here in a couple more hours, 10 years ago, I will be checking into the my first psych ward and really experiencing life on the other side as a patient. And that was a scary experience the first night, but um, it was a really indescribable experience for anyone who hasn't been institutionalized, but there were some positives there too. Um, and it started me really looking at myself and my life and where I wanted to go. And I'm still kind of figuring that out. But I hope that I'll be able to really conceptualize a lot of these things that have kind of been stewing over for 10 years and just chatter some more. So, anyway, thanks for listening. I hope this isn't a total disaster, but I appreciate everybody. And um, that's it for now. I hope to do more. Just better quality, better better projection value. But I hope you all have a better night. I'm having a better night than I did 10 years ago. I'm home with my family and I'm alive. So, thank you and good night.